There is a quiet rhythm in history, one that most people never notice until it's too late. Empires rise in slow motion, build power over centuries, reach their peaks for a few proud decades, and then, in barely 3 years, they disintegrate. 900 days. That is the average window between too big to fail and gone forever. The Soviet Union, the German Empire, the Qing dynasty, Venezuela's economy, different cultures, different centuries, but the same countdown once the decline begins. It's as if history uses the same clock, starting the timer the moment confidence cracks. The illusion of stability. Collapse always looks impossible until it's already underway. In 1988, the Soviet Union appeared permanent. It fielded the largest army on Earth, controlled half of Europe, and aimed nuclear weapons at every major Western city. Its citizens complained about shortages, but no one doubted the state itself would endure. 2 years later, the flag above the Kremlin came down, and 15 new nations appeared where one superpower had stood. From certainty to non-existence in roughly 900 days. This pattern is not unique to Moscow. In 1913, London was the world's financial capital. The British pound was as trusted as gold. Yet within 40 years, Britain had sold its overseas assets, lost its colonies, and borrowed from the United States just to keep the lights on. And in 2007, global economists congratulated themselves on entering the Great Moderation, a supposed new era of stability. By 2008, the global banking system was seconds from freezing entirely. The surface always looks solid until the moment it isn't. That's because people mistake momentum, the lingering force of past success, for strength. Beneath the surface, cracks multiply quietly for years before they reach the breaking point. The mathematics of collapse doesn't move in a straight line. It accelerates. Imagine a dam with a tiny crack. For decades, it flexes under pressure but holds. The water behind it rises and falls, and engineers patch minor leaks. Then, one season, a little extra rainfall, a slightly higher tide, and the wall gives way in seconds. That's how complex systems fail, gradually, then suddenly. Scientists call this a cascading failure. One component breaks. The stress transfers to others. Each failure multiplies the next. Soon, the entire network collapses faster than anyone can respond. Civilizations behave the same way because they're built on interlocking systems, economic, political, social. When one subsystem fails, pressure moves to the rest. When all three fail together, the collapse compresses decades of weakness into a single furious sprint toward the bottom. The 3 pillars: money, confidence, control. Every empire stands on 3 pillars: money, its currency, credit, and trade. Confidence, public faith in its institutions and future. Control, the government's ability to enforce, order, and deliver stability. If one pillar cracks, the structure tilts. If 2 fail, the building sways. When all 3 give way, the fall is inevitable and fast. Stage 1, currency failure money, is the oxygen of a modern society. It isn't metal or paper, it's trust expressed in numbers. When that trust disappears, everything else suffocates. Venezuela, 2013. The country was wealthy from oil, proud of its welfare programs, certain of endless prosperity. 2 years later, inflation hit 800%. By 2017, it was 2,000%. By 2018, over 1,000,000%. Prices doubled every few weeks. Workers were paid in stacks of cash worth less than the bus ride home. Within 900 days, the believer had become waste paper. Shelves were empty, pensions vanished, and citizens traded food instead of currency. A century earlier, Germany followed the same script. In 1921, 60 marks bought $1. By 1923, it took 4.2 trillion marks. Children played with bricks of banknotes. Teachers demanded wages twice a day so they could buy bread before prices rose again. From a bit of inflation to total monetary collapse in less than 2 years. Governments always try the same fixes. They print more money, which devalues it faster. They impose price controls, which create shortages. They blame merchants, speculators, or foreign enemies, anyone but the arithmetic. Each attempt accelerates the downward spiral, and when money fails, everything built on it fails too. Trade, savings, wages, even social trust. Commerce stops not because people lack goods, but because they no longer agree on what anything is worth. Collapse begins quietly, not with riots or tanks, but with a number that no longer means what it used to. Currency failure is the spark that ignites the wider system. Once faith in value evaporates, people stop thinking in years and start thinking in hours. They hoard, they barter, they flee to anything that still holds meaning: gold, dollars, food, safety. And as they do, the second pillar begins to crumble: confidence itself. Money collapses first, but what truly ends an empire is not inflation, it's disbelief. When people stop trusting their institutions, the state itself dissolves from the inside out. Stage 2: confidence collapse. Confidence is invisible. You can't measure it, you can only feel its absence. For years, a society may grumble about corruption or shortages, yet still believe tomorrow will come much like today. That quiet belief is the glue holding everything together. When it snaps, events accelerate beyond control. The Soviet Union, 1980s. For decades, citizens joked about the dysfunction: empty shelves, broken machinery, endless propaganda. They complained, but they still believed the system would exist next year. Then came Mikhail Gorbachev's reforms: glasnost, openness, and perestroika, restructuring. He meant to save communism by admitting its flaws. Instead, transparency revealed rot so deep it shocked even loyal party members. For the first time, newspapers published stories about Chernobyl, Afghanistan, famine, and theft at the highest levels. Citizens saw the real balance sheet of their nation and realized it was bankrupt in truth and in spirit. Once people saw behind the curtain, they couldn't unsee it. In 1989, communist governments across Eastern Europe collapsed like dominoes: Poland, Hungary, East Germany, Czechoslovakia, Romania. Each fall made the next inevitable. By 1990, the Soviet republics themselves declared independence one by one. When hardliners staged a coup in 1991 to save the Union, the people didn't rally, they shrugged. The empire that terrified the world simply ran out of believers. No tanks defeated it, no foreign invasion toppled it, it died of lost confidence. The psychology of collapse. Confidence behaves like electricity. When the circuit breaks, everything goes dark instantly. Markets crash not because every investor sells, but because enough people expect others will. Banks fail not because they run out of cash, but because depositors lose faith that cash is still there. Governments crumble when the public stops obeying before the soldiers stop marching. Once disbelief spreads faster than reassurance, the outcome is mathematically certain. Modern echoes. In 2008, confidence collapsed inside modern finance. For years, traders insisted the system was safe, risk was diversified, losses impossible. Then one bank failed, Lehman Brothers, and the entire network seized within days. Credit froze worldwide. In a digital age, contagion traveled at the speed of information. What took the Soviets years now happens in hours. Confidence is the difference between a recession and a panic, between a government and a regime. Once that psychological threshold is crossed, recovery becomes almost impossible without a complete reset. Stage 3. Loss of control. When currency has failed and confidence has vanished, governments are left with one tool: force. And force alone cannot hold a complex society together. Every empire maintains order through 3 resources: legitimacy, money, and power. Remove the first 2, and the third becomes self-defeating. You can rule people through fear only until fear itself stops working. China, 1911. The Qing dynasty had ruled for nearly 270 years. Its armies still numbered in the millions. Its bureaucracy stretched from the Himalayas to the Pacific. But foreign wars and internal corruption had drained its authority. When a small military mutiny erupted in Wuchang that autumn, local officials hesitated. They no longer believed the center could protect them. Within weeks, province after province declared independence. By February 1912, the emperor abdicated. Centuries of rule ended in 125 days. The same loss of control unfolded in France, 1789. Starving citizens stormed grain stores, soldiers refused orders, nobles fled abroad. The monarchy still existed on paper, but not in the minds of its people. Once legitimacy evaporates, the police and army see themselves as survivors, not servants. That is the point of no return. The mechanism of disintegration. At this stage, governments respond with measures that hasten their own downfall. They impose price caps, which create shortages. They seize industries, which kills production. They censor media, which drives rumor and fear. Every attempt to restore order amplifies disorder. Economists call it a doom loop. Sociologists call it a crisis of legitimacy. Historians simply call it collapse. Control doesn't fade gently, it snaps. And once it snaps, events move at frightening speed, often faster than leaders can issue new decrees. The speed of modern collapse. Digital systems have made the timeline even shorter. Money now moves at the speed of code, information at the speed of light. When confidence falters, capital flees instantly. When censorship fails, rumors spread globally within minutes. A financial panic that once took months now unfolds before lunch. The 900-day rule may soon become the 90-day rule. Reflection. Beat. When belief dies, laws are just paper, money is just ink, and power is just noise. The cascade effect. The final countdown begins when the three pillars, money, confidence, control, start collapsing together. Each failure feeds the next. Currency failure erases savings, sparking panic. Panic destroys confidence, prompting runs on banks and borders. Loss of confidence erodes control, forcing the state to print, seize, and repress. Those actions worsen the currency collapse. Round and round the spiral goes until the system burns through every reserve of stability. This is why collapse feels sudden. It's not a single event, but a self-reinforcing chain reaction. Every fix multiplies the damage. Every attempt to pause the fall increases the speed of descent. The Soviet Union tried reforms. Venezuela tried subsidies. Rome tried devaluing coinage and conscripting labor. Each believed the next decree would buy time. Each only shortened the clock. The 900-day countdown begins. By the time a society enters this cascade, the math is already set. Savings, supply chains, institutions, and morale all begin decaying simultaneously. The fall does not proceed linearly. It accelerates until nothing can keep up. That acceleration, from the first visible crack to the final rupture, is what historians later measure as roughly 900 days. It's the period when every chart curves upward, every promise fails, every plan feels urgent and useless at once. And it's the period almost nobody believes is happening until it's over. When the cracks have formed, the outcome is no longer linear. The fall accelerates until the math, the trust, and the institutions all break at once. Historians can draw the curve again and again. Spain in the 1600s, France 1789, Germany 1923, the USSR 1991, and the line always steepens near the end. Why around 900 days, the 900-day window is not mystical, it's practical. It is how long complex societies can function after the gears seize before the system disintegrates. Roughly that long is needed for 6 things to happen. Savings are exhausted. Households and treasuries spend the reserves built in better times. Credit freezes. Banks stop lending. Debt rolls over without repayment. Alternative networks emerge. Barter, black markets, and parallel currencies begin to replace the official system. Old loyalties shift. Bureaucrats, generals, and allies start hedging their bets. New leaders appear. Movements that were fringe become mainstream. Psychological acceptance sets in. The population stops expecting a return to normal. That sequence takes roughly 2 to 3 years, long enough for denial to fade, but too short for reform to work. It is the interval between someone should fix this and no one can. The warning signs: because collapse compresses time, the real warning period arrives earlier, decades before the crash. The symptoms are always visible. Debt grows faster than income. Borrowing becomes the default solution. Production shrinks. More people manage, fewer create. Currency is debased. Real value declines while official numbers rise. Institutions decay. Rules bend for convenience, then for survival. Society fragments. Citizens argue about identity instead of policy. These trends do not guarantee collapse, but they guarantee fragility. They mean the structure will not absorb shocks, it will amplify them. The trigger is almost always small. A ship sinks, a war starts, a bank defaults, a pandemic spreads. Observers blame the event. Historians later see that the foundation had already turned to sand. Modern fragility. Today, the pattern is visible again, this time on a global scale. The US dollar, dominant for nearly 80 years, is being bypassed in quiet bilateral trade deals. China faces the largest property and local government debt bubble in modern history. Europe wrestles with energy dependence and aging populations. Global debt exceeds $315 trillion, more than 3 times world GDP. Technology has increased speed, but not resilience. Financial markets react in milliseconds. Public opinion turns overnight. Digital networks make prosperity appear infinite, yet they also allow panic to spread faster than any central bank or cabinet can respond. In a connected world, contagion is instant. Confidence, once measured in years, now evaporates in days. The human timeline. During collapse, daily life changes rhythm. At first, people ignore the signs: empty shelves, delayed salaries, strange new rules. Then they adapt, storing food, trading informally, relying on community. Eventually, they stop asking when things will return to normal and start asking what normal ever meant. By the end of the 900 days, an old world has vanished and a new one is improvising in its place. What the 900-day rule teaches: stability is not a natural state. It is maintained every day through competence, honesty, and restraint. When those habits fade, fragility accumulates invisibly. Then, one day, the stress passes the threshold, and the system releases all its stored tension at once. That is the real meaning of the 900-day rule. Collapse compresses decades of mistakes into a single historical moment. You cannot rebuild currency, confidence, or institutions inside that window. You can only endure the transition and rebuild afterward. The time to act is before the countdown starts, while reforms still look optional and warnings still sound alarmist. The uncomfortable truth empires rise slowly, believing time is on their side. They peak, convinced the pattern applies to others. Then, in roughly 900 days, they discover it applies to them. For citizens, the change feels abrupt. For historians, it was inevitable. For those paying attention, it is simply math. Collapse does not wait for permission. It begins quietly, gains speed, and finishes all at once. The question is not whether the pattern is real. The question is whether we will recognize it before the clock starts ticking.